But we'll start with the rise of the banana republics, Central America. Uh, or go back to the conquistadors. Cortez, of course, wanted to upend Montezuma, so he went up to Mexico and he left Alvarado, his second in command, to conquer Central America. When you get to Guatemala, there were 24 different indigenous groups with indigenous languages, and he had to conquer one at a time, and the last one wasn't subjugated until about 1880.
Wow.
So it went on forever. And then jumping ahead to 1940s, United Fruit Company, which we know as Chiquita Banana, Dole Pineapple, and Folgers Coffee, started doing plantations down there. And Guatemala was pretty much run by strongmen without a lot of money. So what they wanted to do was to get this infusion of investments, and they gave United Fruit Company total control of the railroads, the power plants. They were exempted from all income taxes, and they had 3 million acres of land, which they used about half of it for their bananas primarily and coffee. In 1954, Guatemala actually elected Jacoby Arbenz, who was a colonel in the military, which was running the country, but he kind of went 180 degrees and became a reformist. And he told United Fruit Company, you know what we're going to do? You got 3 million acres, you only use it half of it. I'm going to buy back 1.5 million acres and distribute it to the poor people. 3% of the population owned over 90% of the property. And he said, what I'm going to do is pay you at your self-appraised value for the land, which was $3 an acre. And they said, why not? It's worth a lot more than that. And he said, yeah, but you're telling us it's only worth 3, so I'm going to pay you that, and we'll give you 30-year notes at 3% interest. At that time, Eisenhower was president, and John Foster Dulles was the Secretary of State, and John was on the board of directors of United Fruit Company. And you can see where this is going to go. And so he told Eisenhower, we got communists in Central America. This was during the McCarthy era. And there was a certain amount of justified paranoia, but most of it wasn't, because as the war progressed, they were asking these rebels what a communist is. They never found a rebel who could define what communism was. It was all about reform. John Purifoy was the ambassador to Central America, and Dulles called him up and said, you got to do something about this Arbenz. He's a communist. So Purifoy and the CIA put together an army in Honduras and invaded Guatemala and kicked out Arbenz and set up what became a whole rotation of army generals running the country, Molina, Rios, and what was the third one primarily? Armas. They weren't exactly clean in terms of their corruption. When Armas, they each served like a 3 or 4 year term. When Armas retired, he took the treasury and bought an island off of Greece. And Rios bought a 5,000 acre horse farm when he left the presidency. So the country was continually being bankrupted. And in 1964, the people actually revolted against them. And it started a civil war that went till 1996. And during that period of time, the army, trained by our army, out of Fort Bragg, eradicated 440 villages and killed 200,000 people, which if it had been the United States, it would have been 8 million. So it was a big percentage of the population. When the war finally ended, it was determined that an amnesty was granted. Fewer than 10,000 rebels actually turned in their weapons. So it took 200,000 deaths to control these 10,000 little rebels. Then came Vatican II. Pope John the 23rd, and what they say, he opened the window onto Catholicism, got rid of the Latin Mass, and he had the big enclave in Rome. This was in '64, in the middle of the war, and this little Guatemalan bishop was running around Rome at the time, and he was imploring all these bishops, saying, I need priests, they're killing all my priests, and my nuns, and all the local catechists, because everyone was in favor of liberation theology down there, rightfully so. And of course, if you want to send one of your priests down to Central America to be killed, that's not very enticing. And they kept turning him down, and then this one bishop from New Ulm, Minnesota, yay Minnesotans, he said, I'll find you a priest. And he went back home, and Greg Scherer had just been ordained that summer. And the bishop said, hey, I got a good opportunity for you. He said, why don't you apply for this position down in Guatemala? And Schaefer said, I just want to be a parish priest. And he said, no, it's going to be so popular, you've got no seniority, you won't even get it. And he said, okay, so he applied for it. You can imagine how many applications there actually were. One. And the bishop apologized and said, listen, go down there for a year and you can come back. And then we'll fulfill their promise to this little bishop. So he went down there. At the end of the year, the bishop said, you can come home now. And Schaefer said, I'm not coming back. And he was 29 years old. He died at 82 in Guatemala. Mm-hmm. He never came back. Mm-hmm. But at that time, we're getting into Common Hope now, this little English teacher, Dave Hipsch, from Perham, Minnesota, and he taught in Foley, Minnesota, was retiring, and he wanted to give back. So he went down to Guatemala, and he lived with Greg Scherer for a year, learning the language and learning how to put together a project. And then he went off on his own. He was there for a year in Santiago at the beautiful Lake Atitlan, and then one night these masked people came and said, if you don't leave the country tomorrow, we're going to kill you. And he and Betty did leave the country. The priest in Santiago they were working with, he was from Oklahoma, decided, no, I'm not leaving. And they did come and shot him in the head that night and killed him. So it was a pretty violent place. Well, a year later, Dave felt he had to go back. So instead of going back to Lake Atitlan, he went to Antigua, Guatemala. Antigua was founded in 1525. It's a UNESCO city. It still has all cobblestone streets and beautiful architecture. And he set up his program there. Here's a few pictures of.
We could pass those around.
Yeah, pass those around for sure.
Oh yeah. That's right. I didn't pass around that. I showed the guys on the screen, but not you guys.
Oh, they want to see it too. Guatemala is extremely colorful. It's very Mayan. It's very uneducated. United Fruit Company had a policy that all people had to have education. which lasted for 3 years. 3 years of education, which qualified them to be able to read the packing slips on the coffee bags that they were sending to the United States, but not to do anything more, never to get into management. Every year they have these beautiful parades during Holy Week with Alfombras, and the parades last for 12 hours, and it's 4 steps forward, 3 steps back, playing this music and incense and stuff. And we have 3 volcanoes right in Antigua. One is very active, and this is puffing during the day. At night, you'd be able to see the red lava coming down the hills. So it's a beautiful, beautiful little town. It also has about 65 immersion Spanish language schools. So there's a lot of gringos go down there to be educated. But it's surrounded by about 14 villages that are very, very poor, and that's primarily where Dave started working in these villages. He focused primarily on house construction. This is a picture of a family in a typical house made out of corn stalks. And so that was one of the first things he wanted to do. But at the same time, he was actually employing Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you're familiar with that. Yes, you would be. And which starts out with basically clean air and water, security, shelter, and works all the way up to the top of the pyramid of self-sufficiency and self-fulfillment. And that's what he wanted to do with people. So he had learned from Scherer that if you collect shoes and hand out shoes, they'll have shoes, but they'll still be poor. If you collect and hand out money, feed my starving children, they'll eat for a day, but they'll still be poor. And what he wanted to do was take these people who wanted to no longer be poor and help them work themselves out of poverty. So families would come to him, and as the word got out, and they'd say, I want to be in your program. And they'd say, okay, they'd be assigned a social worker, and they would do an in-depth study of what's your problem. Well, Papa drinks too much, Mom's illiterate, the kids don't go to school, we live in a cornstalk house, everyone has dysentery because there's no clean water. We gotta walk a half a mile, quarter mile each way to the town pump to bring water home, things like that. So he started working on all these programs. Clean water, they actually hand out diatomaceous earth filters, and you can pour the water in it and it comes out bacteria free. He developed smoke-free stoves to cook in because they cook over an open fire, make their tortillas, and everybody ends up getting lung diseases, that type of thing. But one of the main aspects of the program is if you're going to stay in this program and work with us, your children have to stay in school. At that time, they were averaging about 3 years of education. Papa was making, on a good job, $3 a day, and a lot of the population were making $2 a day. And he wasn't qualified for anything more because he couldn't read or write. So they were working with these people and getting these kids, not leaving the older generation behind, but he saw the future was in the next generation. And the average, today, the average high school graduate, 18% of the people graduate from high school. And in the program he started, they have 89% graduate from high school. So.
And how many have finished that program so far?
Oh, I'll get to that.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
No, you don't have to. That's a good question. And so here's a lovely picture of, 3 lovely pictures of a team. The program is heavily dependent on vision teams. They used to call them work teams, who would go down there, pay money to go down there. They would sponsor a child. All these children in school have to be sponsored. It costs about $60 a month for the whole family, for their medicine, everything that they need out of the program. And this first picture is a work team going out to start construction of a house. And what we do is shovel all the sand and the rock into the back of a pickup truck, drive it out to the house, could be on a mountain, could be in one of the small villages, shovel it into wheelbarrows and haul it to the site and build what we called a mud volcano. It's all piled up and mixed together, pulled apart, put back together, mixed it in. The cement is done the same thing. Just keep stirring this by hand, 14 people with shovels. And then you hollow the middle and fill it with water and wait for a half an hour, and then you mix it up again. So it's about a 10-hour job to do the foundation of the house. So the houses do have cement foundations. And then the houses are put together with fibrillate, which we would call cement board here. And they're prefabricated at the project site by work teams, and then they're hauled out in the trucks in 4x8 panels and assembled with bolts. And one of the reasons we do this instead of cement blocks is because many of the families don't own the property they're on. They're either renting it or squatting it. And if the actual landowner says, hey, there's a house here, I can kick you out and rent it. Well, then we can take the house apart and move it. So that often prevents them from doing anything. So this is what a finished house looks like.
Have you had to take many apart and relocate them?
Not too many. We're pretty careful about trying to help the family get title to the property to begin with. And that's part of the social worker aspect of it.
Are the teams composed of Guatemalans and Americans whoever is coming to assist?
The teams are composed the teams are composed of Americans. But that's a funny term. I went into the restaurant with the work team one time, and this particular restaurant, Santo Domingo, would put a flag on each table depending on your country, and she said, what's your country? And he said, we're Americans, and she laughed and said, come on, we're all Americans. So that was corrected. But the team is also, the house is also headed up by these guys who are in charge of the house construction. And they're incredible, really fun people to work with. One of them is holding a picture with me and him in funny hats.
Oh, so that's you with the funny hat, huh?
Yeah.
Can you see the picture that he's holding? It's a little blurry, but trust me, that's Greg in that hat under there.
Yeah, a little guy. The families tend to be bigger than ours family. This is a family just moving into their new house. And it's a really fun ceremony. They won't move into the house until it's blessed. People come down there and say, is this a mission trip? Do you preach and stuff like that? We said, we don't have to preach these people. They are preaching to us when we work with them. We learn so much from them. But they won't move into the house till it's blessed. And there was one house that I helped build, and they couldn't get the priest for 3 days because he was tied up. So they weren't going to move into the house. So they said, Greg, would you bless the house? So I got to go out there, and they called me Padre.
Nice.
Oh, Padre Scherer, okay.
We made our own holy water, a little holy fronds, and blessed the house. And that one, we had one guy with a guitar, and so we took our house is a very, very, very nice house, and we wrote it in Spanish and then sang that song for them at the time. And then I bought a string of 300 firecrackers, and we shot off the firecrackers, and we cut a big cake, and it's a big celebration for the family.
Nice.
And it's not much of a house, but one aspect of the program, Dave said, we're not going to give these people anything gratis because they have to work for it, and that way they maintain their dignity. Juxtapose it against our welfare system back here, where you sign up and you get a check every month, whether you earn it or not. So to get a house, a family has to do 400 service hours in the community, usually at the project or for other families. And that might just be sweeping up in the hallways of our center, or helping other families build their houses. And after that, they get the house. And I've seen this senora, she had qualified for her house, and the house had 2 windows in it, and she spent an hour deliberating with herself as to where she wanted those 2 little holes in the wall to go. She had that pride, this is my house now. Yeah, so.
Maybe you mentioned this, how big are the houses?
The houses are 12 by 16 feet or 16 by 32, depending on the size of the family and how much they want. At the project, we have a clinic, and if someone comes in with a broken leg, it costs them 25 cents to have that leg set, but they pay for it. If they need, school supplies are paid for through the sponsorship of the child, and clothing and things like that. But everything is designed for the people to lift themselves out of poverty with our help. And every year we have families that graduate and say, well, thank you, we don't need your help anymore, we're doing okay. And make room for another family to come in. So.
Maybe you said this also. Is there tuition charge for the kids at school?
Yes.
Okay, so the families probably have to contribute a little bit, and then the sponsorship covers the rest.
Sponsorship covers all of it.
Okay,
Yep.
but the families still have to contribute something.
Well, what they do, they'll go out and find a way to buy a uniform for their child. And uniforms aren't required, but each of the schools, by tradition, I don't know if it's the Spanish mentality or what, by tradition they have their own school colors. You know, girls have
Right.
blue skirts and stuff like that. And that's also a source of pride for the parents that they have a child at school in a school uniform, looking good. So they cover that pretty much for themselves.
What we found in Haiti was that if we charged the parents a little bit of tuition, then they were much more likely to support the kid in their studying at home. Whereas if the parents didn't pay anything, but the kid came home from school, it was, well, it's time to put you to work and go do this and go with that.
Right.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and the way they do it is, if the child drops out of school, the family drops out of the program.
Oh, that's right. That's the incentive.
That's the hook.
Got it.
Yeah. So we built New Hope. Hurricane Mitch eradicated. If you see Guatemala, all the poor people build their homes on the sides of these. They're called barrancas, which they are basically cliffs, and the carve out a little platform, build a house, and it's very vertical. And Hurricane Mitch wiped out a whole bunch of these. And this little Franciscan priest came to John Hipsch and said, would you please rebuild these houses with us and help us? And John looked at it and said, it's not even worth it. But he found a farmer wealthy farmer, willing to sell us 30 acres of land north of Guatemala City, and he said, we're gonna build a town. And so volunteers came down, they cleared the trees. A good friend of mine, Jim McDonald, who, that's an interesting story in itself. He was a customer of our company and was supposed to be a customer. Someone said, you gotta talk to McDonald. So I met him for lunch and we had a 3-hour lunch. He talked about Promise Keepers and I talked about Guatemala, and then he called me the next day and he said, Greg, we didn't talk business at all. But I ended up going to Promise Keepers and he ended up going with me to Guatemala and made about 15 trips. And so he was instrumental in helping lay out this village of New Hope, Nueva Esperanza. And, and then John Hipp said, Greg, we need water facilities. We had dug a well 600 feet deep, and the artesian pressure pushed it to within 200 feet of the surface, and we found out we had enough water there to supply Guatemala City. So water wasn't a problem, but a civil engineer came down and visited and said, well, you know, these people are poor, they probably get along good with pit toilets. And John said, when I go to the bathroom, I want to flush my toilet. So he said, Greg, we need a sewer plant, a water treatment plant. So I designed the water treatment plant. And I had just retired at that point at 55, so I went down there for 3 months and worked with that, working on that system, the water distribution system and the water treatment system. And we did it without any chemicals or ultraviolet purification, and yet the water comes out of the plant exceeding the California emission standards for clean water.
Bravo.
And the governor of the province, they're called departments, here we call them counties. The governor came out and looked at it because he had called and said, I don't want you putting dirty water into my river, the Rio Blanco, which actually has soap suds floating on it and it's gray. And we said, I think your Rio Blanco is going to contaminate our effluent. And he came out and looked at it and he said, wow, this is the first treatment plant I've ever seen in Guatemala that works. So he started sending engineers out to look at the way we did it. And it's just all gravity flow. It's got subsurface ponds where the water goes through these large rocks, and we got plants growing on top of them, pulling out the nitrogen. And we have mosquito control. We have tetraminnows doing our mosquito control, eating all the mosquito larvae. And duckweed is the final treatment. And we have 6 months retention in the bottom pond, so it has a lot of time.
Your volume is low.
Yeah, it services a school, once we get into that too, a school of 250 kids and 48 families and staff and doctor clinic and a dental clinic. So it gets about 600 to 800 flushes a day, we figured.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
You know, how do you make sure they're taking care of it?
Oh, those.
That's usually you build something and then you leave.
I have Mario, Martine, and Yogi. What a good lead-in question. These are the 3 Guatemalans that work out at New Hope and maintain the infrastructure and the gardens and Mario is the one that actually maintains the sewer plant. It's actually not called a sewer plant, it's a Sistema para la Tratamiento de Aguas Negras.
And what does that mean?
It's a system for treating the water. Yeah.
So,
By the way, I was looking up Hurricane Mitch. 1998, 11,374 fatalities,
Yeah.
the deadliest in Central America. Category 5, 180-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
Devastating.
Oh, it was just amazing.
Yeah, and it went through Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador.
Yeah, it, and the mudslides it caused were what killed so many people. Yeah. And if you're in a cordstock house, you're not gonna stand up to 100.
80-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, 180 mile an hour wind. So, so we built this village, and oh, I could show that now. The three of us that built the village. I'm on the couch, Jeff Barnes and Renato Westby. Talk about qualification. I have a master's degree in National Park Administration. Jeff has a master's degree in economic history, and Renato has a bachelor's degree in social work. And we designed and built this village for the most part. We had a crew of 45 Guatemalans to do it. And when we went to recruit the people to live there after Hurricane Mitch, Renato had this idea. He invited all these people to come out and set up a picnic in this pasture land, and put out tables with cold cuts and bread and refreshments and all that. And all the people came out. We bussed them out there, and we said, "Time for lunch." And then Renato watched them. And some of the people would take the food and stick it in bags, and other people would take the food and make sandwiches and hand it out to other people and to the children. So you can guess which people were invited back to live in that village. The one that had
That was the system.
yeah, I thought it was the most clever thing in the
It
world.
is, it is, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he did a wonderful job with that. Jeff was overall charge of construction, and that's when I was spending a lot of time there. And we would sit around at night with a bottle of wine and a little campfire outside our house and talk about the day's work and the next day's work, and such things as Jeff would say, "Well, based on my accreditation as a historical economist, I think the water line should go down here." And I'd say, "Based on my accreditation as a national park degree holder, I think it should go here." And Renato would say, "Why?" And I said, "Well, I have a cousin who are a plumber, and he taught me that there's two things about plumbing. One is
Shit runs downhill.
shit runs downhill, paydays on Friday." And that's literally how we worked this stuff out. And then Jim McDonald came down with a transit, and we surveyed in all the streets and things like that. And
You can look it up on the internet. Go to Esperanza.
yeah,
Wow, it's real.
yeah, it's wonderful. But it was primarily a learning thing. And afterwards, John Hipp said, "We won't build any more towns. This is very expensive." But we built this school and learned so much about it. One thing we learned is, I should dig this out now. Oh, maybe I already passed it out. One thing we learned is that children are sensually deprived. If you see a woman with a child up to 3 years old wrapped in a serape hanging on her back while she's working, total sensory deprivation. So when the kids were coming into school, they had no notion of colors or any creativity at all. So we started a preschool program just to let these kids play, to play with things, to touch things. And the other thing we found out that the teachers, when the teacher senior year in high school, they pick their vocation down there. If you want to be a nurse, you learn how to clean bedpans and take blood pressure and rudimentary things. If you want to be a teacher, you learn how to teach by rote, by memorization. So the teachers would come to our school and they would write something on the blackboard, and the students had a notebook and they would copy it in their notebook, and that actually became their textbook after a while. And John brought down a group of graduate school students from the University of Wisconsin. They studied the program, and they came back and gave us a curriculum to teach teachers. So every teacher in that school that we started would teach in the morning till 1 o'clock. They'd have lunch, and then they'd go to the classroom and learn how to become teachers for 2 hours. So we're teaching the teachers how to teach. And what we learned from that was that we didn't want to build any more schools because it was too expensive, but the public schools were still using the old blackboard and chalk method. And Renato started this program. He would go to these schools, and the teachers in the public schools are fairly independent, and they usually start with a first grader and keep them all the way through 8th grade. The same class grows up with them. And he would recruit this teacher with the first graders and say, if you would sign up for this program, we will educate you on the proper way to teach. We'll paint your classroom. We'll install more than 2 40-watt light bulbs, and we will provide you with globes, textbooks, whiteboards, the whole thing. It'll look just like an American classroom. And that caught on to the point where instead of 200 kids in our school, we have over 2,000 kids in the public schools under our tutorage. So that, it was an amazing program. It doesn't cost us that much. We don't have to build.
When the volunteers come down, don't they pay a fee?
Yes.
And then that fee normally takes care of whatever they're going to be doing.
Yep. I think the current rate right now is $1,500 for room, board, transportation, and 500 of that is a direct contribution to the work that they're going to do. It costs about $2,400 to build a house, and everyone wants to build a house when they come down.
We did. My wife and my daughter went down Habitat Humanity to South America, someplace very poor, and they cost them $1,000 each, and that built a house made out of brick. And they make the brick, that they just bake it in the sun.
Adobe.
Adobe, and it would be a one-room house, but it was a big deal, and there'd be somebody there supervising them to be sure that they were doing the job correctly.
Here's 2 shots of my beautiful water treatment plant.
That is, have you ever shared that with Engineering Without Borders?
No. I
That would
did not.
be so appropriate. They do a lot of stuff.
Oh, really?
Yep, and they're all engineer folks in school.
My doctor.
Well, they're overqualified. You need a national park degree, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, not just anybody can go down and do this stuff. But the World Wide Web was just really getting going, and I just picked up all my information off the web for the most part.
I mean, the wastewater plant sounds like it works better than what they now, how they install one now. As soon as they leave, the maintenance of the thing, they just kind of forget about it.
Yeah.
And then it gets clogged up and it's not working anymore.
We looked at some down there, like the trickle filters where you were supposed to run into these 8-inch pipes and then like big arms and then drop through holes. Well, the pipes were hanging down so low they were touching the stones because they were just plugged up with crap. They weren't operating at all. So, yeah.
But you got a natural one, just goes from one to the other, right?
That was one of the benefits. We had gravity flow through the whole thing. Yeah. And even connecting one level to the other instead of running down a pipe, we have this step waterfall, which has moss and lichens growing on it. So even going from one pond to the other, it's picking up oxygen and getting rid of
and
its
the
nitrogen.
recruits could say, we're not going down there to build a house, we're going down to build a village.
Actually, they all go down to get an inspection of the water treatment plant. They all get a tour of that too.
Huh.
Yeah, they're still very proud of it. So here is also, this is a picture of me back in, I don't know, I was probably 55 years old, and I was spending a lot of time there, and I'm sitting here with Nancy and Dalila and Carlito during a rest break in the afternoon. It's one of my favorite pictures. Dalila became a professional businesswoman. Nancy became a homemaker. And I don't know what Carlito's doing. Carlito would have been in special education back here. So, here's a shot of me and Freddie. And he's an incredible pickleball player. Yeah, he and Renato get in pickleball tournaments all the time now.
That's great.
That's your avocation.
I noticed this Seminoles sweatshirt.
Yeah. Oh, there's a t-shirt story to talk about the dignity of these people. Charlie Wenner was a volunteer on my first trip, and we built what he called the Casa de Diablo, the House of the Devil, because way up on this mountain, and it took the whole team to move all the aggregate up there. This high school graduate was pulling the wheelbarrow, and someone was pushing it, and he made like 75 trips up that switchback during the course of the week.
Oh.
They called him the little bull. But anyway, Charlie went on to become a doctor, and he said one time he was working, and this guy didn't have a T-shirt, so Charlie sent him to the clothing shelf, and he got a T-shirt, and then people started laughing at him, and he went to Charlie and said, "What does my T-shirt say?" And Charlie looked at it and said, "I'm not bald, this is a solar panel for a sex machine." And he told him, and the guy said, "I cannot wear this." And Charlie, this is right out of the scriptures. Charlie said, "I had the shirt on my back, and I had a clean one hanging in my room." And he thought, "What do I need with two shirts?" So he gave the guy his other shirt. And the volunteerism down there is fabulous. It's incredible.
The locals.
People graduate from college up here and volunteers.
I got you.
Volunteer for a year, and they work directly with the people. And I was doing a tour at New Hope with Beth, one of the new volunteers, and one of the I call them gringos. One of the vision team said they were asking questions, and I said, "So, what do they eat?" And Beth would say, "We eat primarily beans and rice." And said, "How do they keep clean?" And Beth said, "Well, we have cold water showers." And after a while, this one woman caught on because she was talking about they, and Beth was talking inclusively about we. And so the woman said, so when did you decide that you really became part of this community? And she said, first time I was able to pick up a child and not worry about getting its head lice.
Without worrying about
Picking up its head lice.
head lice.
So incredible. Some of the volunteers are just amazing that show up down there.
So, can you say a little bit about the government of Guatemala?
Today,
Is it stable? Do they mess with the people? Do they provide any services to the people? Or does it all rely on volunteers from out of the country?
yeah, it's improved dramatically. I remember the last one election I was down there, and in the paper the next day, it talked about a good election, and there were only 58 assassinations during the campaigns. And this General Molino, who was subsequently indicted for genocide, he was running under the mano fuerte, the strong arm thing, and he was saying, look at all the bus robbers. Everyone rides around in chicken buses there. All the bus robbers. There's been 50 bus drivers murdered this year. Well, it turned out he did not get elected, and it turned out that he had been paying the robbers to rob the buses to make the point that he should be allowed to put the military out on the streets. And that's the way the campaigning went. Now, for the last 3 elections, you can only serve 1 term, and it's a 3-year term. So if you get a really good president, too bad he's out the door. If you get a bad president,
Can't wait.
can't wait to get him out the door. Even though this last president, the attorney general, right, of the country, a woman, was trying to call out the military to keep him from being inaugurated. And so there's still a lot of infighting going on, and they're trying to get her impeached and removed. Currently, politically it's pretty good. There's a gang war going on right now in Guatemala City of the MI-13 gang or something like that, who really literally control parts of Guatemala City. But in the Antigua area where Common Hope works, it's pretty good. It's very good, actually. Yeah, you can walk around at night.
A byproduct.
Yeah, I don't know. Antigua was the initial capital of, its full name is Antigua, Guatemala, Old Guatemala City. And a big earthquake in the late 1800s pretty much devastated a lot of it. So they moved over the mountain to this little village, which is now Guatemala City, of about 3 million people, 4 million people.
Did they have big devaluation of the funds
Of the
to balance the budget? Big devaluation of the dollar, or whatever they call it.
Yeah, they use the quetzal, and for the last maybe 10 or 15 years, the exchange rate is about 7.5 quetzales to the maybe 8 to the dollar. So it's been
steady.
pretty stable. Yeah,
Terrific.
amazingly stable, which means the economy is actually getting stronger. So back in 2004, Common Hope finished its 500th home. It's now well over 1,000 homes built. The Partner School program has where's the grade schools? 10,000 kids in the Partner School program in the public schools. 2,050 families in the program itself. We've got 3,300 high school kids, all being scholarshiped. We graduated 184 last year. There were 4,500 visits to our clinic. 5,800 social worker home visits, and a total of 3,600 high school graduates since we started that program.
Huge.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really doing well, and it's just pretty much all grassroots. Dave Hips, the founder, just died this last November at 88, and his son John predeceased him by about 5 years. Had a heart attack, and we really enjoyed John. He was very anal. He liked to build things, and he had just stepped down for Sherry Blint to take over as the director, and he came out to New Hope, and we were kind of finishing it up, and I had just designed, and the guys had built the backup generator shed, and he came out and looked at it and said, "That's not the way I would have done it, Greg, but this is better." But gee, John,
Great compliment.
I said, "John, you've grown up." he had learned to let go. Yeah. So anyway, so this is, a lot of you know Marion.
Yeah.
She has a child down there, and here she is hanging out with him.
That's a great picture.
Yeah.
That's a great picture.
Whoop, where am I? Oh, there we go.
You need longer arms.
I do.
This is Linda and I visiting.
Now this is not too long ago.
Oh, 5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. This is Linda and Maria, one of our sponsored children, walking through the village. And here's a number of shots of kids in the schools.
Very colorful.
It's a colorful country. It's amazing, and it's a musical country. In the Central Plaza, there's always music going.
And we complain about our system.
Well, Marion had before she retired, she worked in child protection services, and
In the States?
yeah, in New York, and pretty much, you know, every family she visited was on welfare. And she came back from there and said, we should turn our system upside down. And instead of enabling people to have more illegitimate children and therefore collect more money on their monthly check. Yeah,
That isn't anymore though.
no,
It was.
yeah.
It was.
You know, Chicago used to, Minnesota's welfare system was so lenient, Chicago used to hand out bus tickets to people to send them to Minnesota. Because you could,
And to Wisconsin.
okay, you could qualify within 3 days and start collecting money.
They would send them from the south. You can go to jail or you can go to Wisconsin.
Yeah,
Money for a taxi, go to this department, welfare department, do this, and they gave them coupons to go do all that stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
So we ended up with gangs
Uh-huh.
that they finally correlated, where are these people coming from?
This is a picture of Linda and I, and Minor, who was the first principal of the New Hope School we started. He has gone on now. He got a PhD. And he's teaching at the University of Guatemala, but he would assemble all the kids in the gymnasium. We had built this beautiful outdoor gymnasium where we taught kids how to play floor hockey and basketball, and he would honor all the birthdays, and then he'd have one of the kids come out and lead in a prayer. And a vision team went down there one day, and after this, after the ceremony, the kids were in the class, and he was talking to the people on the team, and he was saying, well, we have this preschool program and the pre-preschool program, and we have a lunch program for the poorest of the poor, and we do this and we do that. And he was going on, and people were really impressed, and then he stopped and he said, well, you know, none of this matters if we don't love them.
Amen.
And all the women started crying, of course. And he was his brother was on the Guatemalan national basketball team, so he would play basketball with us too. We had when the teams would come out there, and I was spending a lot of time there. They spent 3 days there, and we needed a work project, so we built all these cement block houses. The people were building their houses, and I got a little flyer with all the NFL team colors on it. So I bought these 5-gallon buckets of primary paint, and then I go to the senor and say, we want to paint your house. What color do you want it? She'd pick out one of the colors, and then we'd mix the paint, and the work teams would go paint the houses, and then at night we'd play basketball with them, usually basketball or floor hockey, and we'd taught these kids how to play to where they got really good, fast breaking, passing, you know, moving the ball around. But I'd tell the work teams, I said, these kids would really like to learn how to play basketball. Could you play a game with them? And we beat the pants off these visitors because we were at like 6,000 feet altitude, you know, for the most part. And we could run back and forth. And Renato and Stefan were my guards, and Nancy was my shooting forward, and little David was my Dennis Rodman, and then we ended up playing this team that came from Lake Tahoe. And I didn't realize Lake Tahoe was over 10,000 feet, I think. So they could run with us, and we beat them 50 to 46 or something.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Played well.
All adults against my little team that were, you know, 4 feet 8 inches maybe.
So when do you think you're going to be going back, Greg?
I'm hoping April because I missed this trip, but I'd like to get back there before the summer one time. These last 2 pictures pretty much say it all. This is some of the graduates from last year high school.
Aha.
And they all have dreams.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
And now their dreams are practical now. Before, they wouldn't have been. There was a little barefoot 8-foot boy came into quite a few years ago. Was very intelligent. He got shoes, he got schooled, he went to the University of Guatemala, became a doctor, came back, went to he gave us, in gratitude, he provided a year's service at our clinic, and then he went back to his village, and he had 3 high school graduates, taught them how to become nurses, and he runs a clinic in his village right now. There was another one, Minor, who a friend of mine, Dana Harms, had come down with me, and he had just finished an orthopedic internship at the University of Minnesota, and he had been an engineer and he wanted to do engineering stuff, but they talked him into doing one morning in the clinic, and the first person he saw was this Minor who was complaining about a sore shoulder. And Dana came into lunch and he started crying. He said the kid's got a tumor, and it's probably going to kill him. And Dana went home, and Common Hope worked really hard, got him a passport and a visa. Dana went home to the University of Minnesota, and he lobbied and lobbied for medical care, and he finally intercepted the director of the whole hospital system in the parking lot. And he badgered him until he got a surgical suite and a surgeon and all the fixings. And he came up and did a 6-hour surgery and removed the tumor. And then he lived with Dan and his family for 3 months before he went home. And today he's a practicing architect. So,
Great story.
Great story.
yeah, it's amazing.
You know, Craig, we have a fellow on our foundation board, and he was the highest ranking non-commissioned officer, 2,000 people. And there was a presentation by students in the servant leader chairs we have, and one of them went to South America or some country like that, and played basketball associated with, he had dozens of projects he did. Kind of amazing that he could get all that done. Just a student. But the thing he did is he played basketball with him, he was part of the village, and he said what that young man did there was far superior than what we do with all our money, government programs, everything else. He said that's life-changing for those people, that integration. And you're doing that.
Yeah, people say that, but all I can say is I got back 100 times what I've ever given. Yeah.
Your personal growth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Greg.
It's building relationships, right, Greg? He doesn't just do them for people, it's
You
building
know, a
those
big
relationships.
part of it is that the Guatemalans know that we care. Yeah, that's huge. It gives them a lot of hope. And we've had high school kids go down there. All our children brought their friends down for teams at graduation from high school. And on the way home, it was amazing. They would be driving back through their neighborhood and they'd say, look at that house. We could put 4 families in that house.
Life changing.
Yeah, it's really life-changing. You get so much.
There's surplus food in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And it has been that way for maybe 20 years.
Yep.
But people are starving all over.
Ah.
And my perception is the reason they're starving is for corruption.
There's so much corruption. I mean,
And part of the corruption is people also try to make a living for their family.
Yeah.
You can't disregard that if you're.
well, the government there is poor, and that's why they tell us, yeah, if you want to take over the schools and run the classrooms, fine, then we don't have to spend any money. So
Yeah, that's the fine.
that aspect of it works out. Okay, well, thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much.